My eyes are better now. I don't know if you noticed. Look, I haven't got pink eye anymore, which is always a positive because last week wasn't fun, man. It was like trying to do anything and my eye was like half closed. Now you don't have to look at the horrible state of my left eye. But right now, just before we get into this video, guys, I want to give a big shout out to all you guys who've been watching, subscribing. We did have the channel monetized a couple of years ago, but the numbers had fallen off and the activity had fallen off. So since obviously this resurgence over the past couple of months, we've seen a lot better numbers. The subs are coming in all the time. You guys have been watching has helped this channel now be monetized once again, which helps support me. It helps support the organization. So thank you very much to every single one of you who's been watching the videos consistently. We're going to get into a new one today, though. This one's going to be around the patch that was released, albeit a couple of days ago. I didn't really want to discuss it yet because I wanted to sort of get hands-on, make a decision on how these changes have been implemented and how well they are actually working. But we're going to break it down. I'm going to actually go through the patch list and then we'll go and dive into each one on sort of a section basis. But I'm obviously orientating this mostly towards the competitive side and how it affects competitive, not necessarily going to go through everything. Like, we're not going to go through playlists, that sort of thing. We're going to go through weapons, spawns, that sort of thing, and get a good idea of what's actually being changed. First and foremost, let's go through assault rifles. So this is what Treyarch have said in the patch notes, which, again, if I remember, I'll put it in the description below. Okay, so assault rifles, we're dialing back some previous buffs to assault rifles to help close the gap in effectiveness between ARs and SMGs, allowing SMGs to be more effective at firing on the move. So all ARs have received a slight reduction to ADS movement speed for assault rifles and a slight reduction to ADS in transition speed. The ICR was targeted specifically with a reduced headshot damage and a slight reduction to reload speed, and the Vapor was targeted specifically as well with reduced close range headshot damage. Damage now falls off sooner and something to do with high caliber. That's not important. So for me, the AR nerf was needed in general, and this seems to be sort of going towards the close range encounters. So reducing the ADS movement speed and the ADS in transition speed means they're not as good up close range. If you can't snap in close range as quickly, that definitely helps. Then if you're going to be hip firing, yes, okay, the hip fire on some of the ARs is still pretty strong, but that's just going to help out the SMGs up close and personal. From using the guns and watching people play with the new patch, I'm basing a lot of this off of Red, Reserve, and Reciprocity scrims last night because I sat there and watched it for a good few hours to get a good idea of what sort of changes the patch had actually made. As far as ARs are concerned, I don't think it's changed it too much. It does seem to be the ICR being ran by one guy on the team. Most other people using a mix of the Maddox and the SOG. It seems to be one ICR, 2 or 3 Maddoxes, and 1 or 2 SOGs. So nothing's really changed in terms of how many people are using ARs. The Maddox is still very strong and seems to be the go-to weapon from nearly everybody, to be honest with you. It's one of them that just does everything pretty well. It's a good all-round gun. So a lot of people are running that one. As far as the assault rifle nerfs are concerned, it hasn't affected things too much. So from that, I would like to maybe see a slight reduction in something else on the ICR. Maybe make the hipfire spread a little bit higher, that sort of thing. The Vapor got a specified nerf as well, but we haven't seen that be used too much. It seems to be the gun that's in between the ICR and the Maddox, where the ICR does the job that it's supposed to very well. The Maddox does the job that it's supposed to very well. So having something that meets in the middle isn't necessarily worth it at this point. The Maddox is the best all-round gun. The Vapor is a bit more long range, but if you're going to use long range, you'll use the ICR. So the Vapor's just in a place now where it doesn't really fit into a role, and that's why we're not seeing it being used. But yeah, right now I'd maybe like to see a slight further reduction to the ICR, something to note. Grip 2 had been nerfed, so that's something else to look towards. But the assault rifles have been toned back just a little bit, but it hasn't made too much of a difference. Let's have a look at the SMG. So basically, the only one they've really improved is the MX9. They've extended all damage ranges in high caliber. Well, that's not important. Cordite, they've extended all damage ranges, but the Cordite I don't think will be used anywhere because I think the kick on it was a little bit too much. It's just not a very good gun. The GKS's operator mod being changed, the SOG's operator mod being changed, that doesn't really matter. So the only one to really discuss is the MX9. Now, I haven't seen anybody use it yet, and we've had a couple of nights of this to be played out, so it obviously isn't fitting in. The thing is, again, it's a bit like the Vapor. The gun's probably really good, especially with the buff that comes in, and that's an extended all damage ranges gun. So, I mean, that's an all-round damage buff, which is obviously a positive for the MX9, but where does it fit? The thing is, the Maddox is really pretty decent up close and has a pretty good medium range effectiveness. The SOG is still the daddy up close. I just don't think the MX9 slots in anywhere. It's quite like the Vapor. It's probably somewhere in between the SOG and the Maddox, but why would you use it when you have the SOG or the Maddox? It's sort of an amalgamation of the two, and it just doesn't seem to suit any sort of roles at the moment. You would just use the Maddox or the SOG. Most people are using Maddox, most people are using SOG. So the MX9 right now is better, but it's not really in a great place in terms of how it's going to be used. I'm going to quickly go over tactical rifles. So the ABR has been buffed, and we've seen it be really, really strong in the beta. However, right now we haven't really seen it be used too much, but I don't think we will see it used too much. I'm just going to read through what they've done to it. Okay, so they have extended the maximum damage range, a reduction in movement speed bonus for stock, but an improved hip fire accuracy with laser sight and laser sight too. They did something to the operator mod as well, but that's not important because we don't use them, of course. The Swordfish actually got nerfed a little bit, but that's for high caliber and it's operator mod, so again, not too important. I think it could potentially be used in Search and Destroy, but as far as I'm concerned, the ABR just isn't as good as the ICR. So I think that's the thing there, is that you just use the ICR if you're going to use a long-range AR, or if you want to go further, you use the sniper. It might get used. It could become very, very strong, but I very much doubt it. I think the ABR will stay where it is, and that's by being not selected by anybody. There's a been a buff to most of the sniper rifles outside of the Paladin, but just looking at it from the outside, the Outlaw's improved base damage, went from 110 to 130, still doesn't one-shot. The SDM received no damage buff. The Koshka improved from 120 to 140, still doesn't one-shot. So realistically, we're not going to see anything else apart from the Paladin being used at all. Just expect the Paladin to be the #1 sniper in the game for a long, long time, because it does seem to be going down that route. Right, what were we going to go into next? Yes, of course, it is the Specialist. As I scroll down, there was another few things on the weapons, but nothing too important. As said, a Grip 2 nerf came in with a reduced ADS flinch mitigation, and surprisingly, actually, an ELO slightly increased the ADS recoil, so ELOs now kick up a little bit more. I don't think it affects things too much. Everyone seems to like them just because of their field of view. You know, there's no big bar surrounding it, like the red dot's got the frame around it, so you can't see as well where that frame is. That's why the ELO is used, and the ADS isn't really... The recoil isn't going to affect it too much. Let's move into Specialists. Okay, so the Ajax nerf has come in. I'm going to read through them. I'm going to read through the important ones here. So I'm going to go through Ajax, Crash, Firebreak, Torque, and Profit. Ajax, we're providing more strategic options to counteract the ballistic shield and help ensure the shield isn't activated too often in the same game. Explosives now apply partial damage to the front of a deployed ballistic shield user. Okay, ballistic shield now takes longer to earn as well. Let's talk about Crash. So they said, while we're happy that our support specialist is so popular, he is a bit too effective as a score streak farmer, so they've reduced the teammate used pack scorer event from plus 50 to plus 25. So when you put your assault pack down and somebody picks something up, you only get 25 extra points. Firebreak, they have buffed the Purifier. It has been restored to its former glory. So flame damage is a guaranteed eventual kill against a player who doesn't have Tank Mask equipped. And there's a couple more to go through. Torque and Profit. Okay, so Torque has actually received a buff, so an increased earn rate for Barricade and increased hit points for Barricade. So the Barricade becoming stronger. They haven't actually done anything to the barbed wire. And Profit has received a buff as well. So Profit's Tempest need an upgrade to stand a chance of competing with the rest of the specialists. And a greatly increased Tempest projectile speed and a slightly increased Tempest chain distance. Resolve an issue by hitting the explosive charge, blah, 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 blah. Okay. First and foremost, the Ajax nerf is good, but we need to see more of them. Right now, if I want to see that be competitively viable, we need to see more of an Ajax nerf. I think the Ajax nerf, I think realistically the best thing for them to do is make the shield breakable. If they make that breakable, then a few clips, you know, you team shot it, he goes down fairly quickly. So I think that's probably the right direction to go. But the thing is that at least they are noticing that a nerf was needed. The nerfs come in. I haven't seen them be used too much, and we all know exactly why, because there's a certain thing pros are doing right now, and that's not using them. So we can't really get a good indication how strong he is now and how much of an explosive damage nerf or buff it was to his shield, if you like. So right now, I still want to see a little bit more, but we haven't seen enough to sort of gauge where he's at on a competitive level. The Crash one, he's no longer a score streak farmer, so that's a positive, of course. Firebreak's Purifier has received a buff, but we haven't seen it used too much. It's more of a close quarters thing. It doesn't really have the best range on it, of course, so maybe in hardpoint and control, it's decent enough for smaller maps and really tight-knit close quarter control or hardpoint hills. But we haven't seen it be used too much, and I think this might help a little bit, but it's still viable. Don't get me wrong, but it's not necessarily as strong as some of the others, of course. Talk received a buff. I don't really know why. And they've said that they've seen him struggling on a broader scale, and we got to remember this is based off publics, that sort of thing as well. But it's an increased earn rate for Barricade and increased hit points for Barricade. I just think that we didn't really need to see that. That was pretty wild. He's really strong in the right hands. Public players probably aren't using him in an overpowered way that competitive players can use him. So the fact that we've seen a buff there is disappointing for me. I still don't want to see Talk in the competitive rule set. They have removed him in S&D, which was one of the bigger issues surrounding him. But right now, I still just think it's just a cheat code, isn't it? You stick it down on one lane and you've got that lane locked and you don't need to worry about as much, which they might say is tactical, but for me, you don't need to do anything too crazy to actually get away with using that one. Who else? So Prophet has actually received a buff and he's become a lot more powerful, and I've seen him be used a lot already. I mean, the Tempest is going to be very, very strong in those close-knit quarters, control points or hardpoint points, specifically where I've seen him used really well. I think it was by Shawnee yesterday on gridlock control. They were attacking on a side, and it was in and around where the bathrooms are on the right-hand side. He shot one guy on the other side, and I think it chained to like 2 others, and that's a free few kills, and they got the hill off that. So Prophet, very, very strong right now, and I'd be surprised if he stays that way. Don't be shocked if they reduce him back down again, because he could now become very, very powerful. The projectile speed was something that sort of put a skill gap on him, because you really had to time your shots correctly with it. It wasn't dead on. It wasn't like a hit scan thing. It's one of them things where the projectile actually has to travel. So that's why he didn't seem as accurate, which made him all right for me. I think you could have seen maybe the chain distance increased and just left it at that. So what they have increased, I said, is a slightly increased Tempest chain distance. So you can't remain too close to your teammates if they have been shocked. Okay, a couple more things to go through, then I'm going to end it there and let you get on with the rest of your day, guys. So hardpoint and control spawns have been tuned. Let's read through what they said in the patch. Hardpoint, tune spawn logic tuning. Tune spawn logic tuning? Who writes these things? Tune spawn logic tuning around how the active hardpoint affects nearby spawns. This should provide more predictable spawns when battling over an active hardpoint. Additional global spawn adjustments to improve the ability for a player to anchor a location for their team's respawn relative to an active hardpoint. Spawn adjustments made for frequency and seaside. Seaside seems to be the biggest issue here, because we're still seeing things happen with the spawns that probably shouldn't. The tweaks are in the right direction. They have helped, but they need to be tweaked a little bit more. But the positive for me here is that it's a step in the right direction. They're doing the right thing. They have also made spawn adjustments to control. So realistically, these have improved, but not so much control. I think people went whinging about control spawns too much in competitive just yet. I think everyone's still learning the game mode, so they haven't been able to, if you like, make it easier to spawn kill as of yet. But right now, hardpoints still aren't quite there. There's still a point on Seaside hardpoint where people are spawning behind people at the statue specifically. Things like that need to be changed. But as said, it is noticeable that they have made a change, and that's a positive. Hopefully they do keep tweaking them just to get them perfect, but they're not quite there yet. important ones to finish on. Stim has received a nerf, so it's an increased time to fully heal the player on stim shot now. They did need to reduce something. They need to reduce it how quickly the stim loads up again, or reduce the time that it actually takes to heal you. I would have liked to see it reduce the other thing, not necessarily how quickly it heals you, but how quick you can get stim back. I think that would have made more sense, but the fact is that they have nerfed it. It hasn't been hit too badly, I will say that, but it's to the point now where other people are considering using other things. There's other equipment in there that you obviously can use, armor being the main one. So we have seen a few players running armor, specifically AR players who are maybe playing a little bit slower. They can take an extra shot and dip back into cover, that sort of thing. So it's something that we will see probably being used a lot more armor now that stim has been nerfed. It wouldn't surprise me to see a further stim nerf as well, because it's still pretty strong. One final thing I did want to pick up on, I was having a look at the score streaks, and I only just noticed this today when I was looking through it. Obviously, I'd already read through these when they did get announced. So the dart has been buffed, an increased explosion radius and damage. Players can now use a second dart when earning 2 dart score streaks. So if they overlap, you can just get a second dart. I think the thing is here, it's far too easy to get a dart, and the fact that they made them more powerful is too strong. We've seen how good they can be in competitive play, and if you're able to get a couple of kills with one of them, increasing the radius is the big one there. Then that opens up hills that I can't remember exactly off the top of my head how many points it is to get dart, but it's not many. It really isn't, especially on a mode where you're getting rewarded for sitting in hard points or for sitting and defending inside the control points. I just don't think that it's a good idea to have it so low, especially if you're going to buff it. I think I want to see dart maybe have an increased score point, maybe bump it right up there, something along the lines of Hellstorm, because it is just as easy to get kills with. Okay, maybe you can't line up 4 or 5, but at the same time, it's very, very easy to use, and you can get it too quickly. The same with the RCXD. They're too easy to get. Overall, my opinions on this patch were pretty strong. I like what direction they're going in. For the most part, I like the changes. Outside of the dart change and outside of the talk change, everything else for me was in the right direction. It's positive. I like how it's affected the rule set a little bit. Just touching on that, obviously talk not being allowed in S&D, that was announced maybe yesterday or the day before. That's important that that's now happened. So he's not a problem in search and destroy anymore, which is good. But overall, this patch is good. It's the balancing patch that we expected to see. They haven't went too hard in the wrong direction so that they would have had to release another patch. It's just slight touches, and that's the right thing to do. Make slight adjustments over time rather than a big adjustment, then you have to readjust things. So realistically, I think they've done the right thing. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on it, and a subscription would be great. Again, I will repeat what I said at the beginning of the video. Very, very happy with everybody who's been watching and supporting. The channel's now monetized, so we can start making some cash off some ads. So sorry that you're going to see some ads now, but that's going to be it for now, guys. We're going to have another video tomorrow. I'm recording it today, but tomorrow, which will be my final thoughts on the V1 rule set and a couple of changes that have come in over the past week. Guys, make sure you catch that one, and we will see you then.